All right, so make sure you write your name up at the top. Write your name, not my name. I know my name. And then your period is 8. This is the last period.
Ma'am, are we writing down on a notebook or do we print it out?
If you printed it out, you can write it on those notes. If you did not print it out, you can write it in a notebook instead.
Okay.
All right. Now, as we start to get into more in-depth notes, I really encourage you to print it ahead of time because sometimes the notes are very long. And what I do is I type half of them for you and do fill in the blanks, just like it's to make sure you're paying attention. But if you didn't print them out, then you have to handwrite everything. That means including the stuff that I've typed. So you want to make sure that you get a printer soon, so that when I start doing the guided notes that are half typed, you don't have to handwrite all of it because that can be a lot. So we always start with asking a question, right? We said that was our first step of the scientific method. But not all questions are testable using the scientific method. Some are subjective, which means what? Some questions are subjective. What does it mean if something is subjective? Remember, we have objective or subjective. Joshua? Subjective means it's based on my opinion, right? So we need objectivity in science, but we also need to be able to test it. A testable question is a question that can be answered by testing it in an experiment. Yep, everything I write, you write. So a question that can be answered. A. And I will always upload a completed version of it on my website, dcsmscience6.weebly.com, as well as on my YouTube channel in case anybody missed anything. A question that can be answered by testing it in an experiment. And remember, if we're at home, we are not typing this. You are writing it by hand. I will not accept a typed paper. Your brain doesn't register it the same way. When you take the time to handwrite it, it helps to reinforce it in your brain. It is true. There's a method to my madness. Joshua. My song? Yeah. That hurts my feelings. But I bet you it helped you on the quiz, right? There you go. Ain't no shame in my game.
Oh, yeah. Even if you feel the pain.
So our big thing is, how do we write a testable question then? We know that an experiment has an independent and a dependent variable, right? Yeah. We know experiments have independent and dependent variables. So our question has to also show what our independent and dependent variables are. We're always going to start it with the same way for the purpose of this class. I've got a couple friends that are going to be locked in a box. They're going to be locked up in a box because we're always going to use them. They're always going to stay there. Yep. And it's got some company because effect is going to be locked up in a box too.
No, I don't. I can't read.
So how does blank affect blank? Don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly what goes in the blanks. But the reason I have them in boxes and with locks on them, because they're always going to be there. They're going to stay there. They're going to stay there.
Oh. I thought that was the lizard.
Now, what goes in the first box is my independent variable. How does what I change affect my DV, what's being measured?
DV.
How does what I change affect what's being measured? And for the purpose of this, I'm color coding it. I'm a very visual person. So I'm going to have my independent variable be yellow. And my dependent variable is going to be green.
That's what it is. I just realized that.
Remember, I'll write it on the side. Remember, IV equals independent variable. Unless you want to write independent variable every single time. I didn't think so. So we're going to use scientific shorthand because we're scientists. So I've got my independent variable and my dependent variable. How does what I'm changing on purpose affect what I'm measuring? Let's stay focused. How does what I'm changing affect what I'm measuring? It's kind of like how does the cause affect the effect? How does the cause, what I change, right, affect the effect? It's true. What I'm changing is going to cause something, right? What I'm measuring is going to be the effect of something, right? So my IV is my cause. And my DV is the effect. We always analyze cause and effect relationships in science. We always analyze cause and effect relationships. Like in our practice quiz, the cause was the changing the food and the effect was how much water she drank. Thumbs up if you're at home and you're ready. Thumbs up if you're in class and you're ready. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'll give you about one more minute. Because I can tell some of you are color coding and I like that. I bet you're going to help your brains organize the information. You better. I still have notes from when I was in high school. They're in my garage. Yep. No, I tutored for a long time. All right, so let's flip it. Are we ready? All right. Now, some people might think this is an opinion. Which brand of shoe makes you run faster, Nike or New Balance? But it's actually not an opinion.
What?
It can be objective. Now, if I did this experiment and you did this experiment, the results might be different because our bodies are different, right? We also have different backgrounds. I'm a runner. You may not be a runner. Julian might be a sprinter, so he might naturally be faster than me, right? But if the same person were to do this experiment, were to run in each shoe and record their speeds, then we could make an experiment as long as it was the same person doing it, right? All right. Is this in our testable question format? Does it have our words locked up in our boxes? No, what words go in our boxes? What words go in our boxes? How does and what else? How does blank affect blank? So we have to change this to put it in our format. We got to follow a couple steps in order to do that. Step 1 would be to read the question carefully, always. Read the question carefully. And I say read it carefully because a lot of times, like, our brains move faster or our eyes move faster than our brains can process. So we want to slow down and make sure we're really reading the question to understand what it's asking. We know it's not in our format. We've already talked about that. It's not in our format. So we have to rewrite it. We have to rewrite it. We must.
We must.
We must do it.
Yeah, we must. Wait, how about the answers?
Step 2. Well, I'll wait. I can see that some of us aren't caught up, so I'll give us a little bit of time. Step 2, we have to identify our variables. We got to figure out what we're changing and what we're measuring. Don't call it out. But first, we have to identify our variables. That's right, Bobby. I see it. He's like, yeah, we got to identify those variables. Absolutely. What am I changing on purpose in this experiment, Bobby? What's my IV?
Your IV is the different type of shoe you have.
Yep, I'm going to say the brand because when we say type of shoe, what do I mean? Like a basketball shoe, a running shoe? But we're specifically talking about the brand, so we want to use the words that are in the question. So the IV that I change it, is the brand of shoe. Because I change it. Is the brand of shoe. So Nike or New Balance. Well, that is subjective. We need objective observations here. We're scientists. No room for opinions. No room for opinions. We need science. I can change the type of shoe I wear. What am I measuring that I can't change? What am I measuring? Joshua, the speed. The DV, the D stands for what? What does that D stand for, Bryson?
Data.
Data, perfect. The data. And in this case, and we want to be specific, not only is it the speed, but I'm going to say the speed for 1 mile or speed to run 1 mile. Because we got to be specific, right? I could say I'm going to run one distance in one shoe and one distance in the other, but then that wouldn't be consistent or reliable. And again, I'm going to color code it. So which brand of shoe?
Someone keeps leaving and rejoining.
It might be because their internet connection is not working. So we'll try to give them some grace. And if they keep leaving, just let me handle it. I'll reach out to them, okay? But thank you for letting me know. Yeah. I actually did this experiment last year. I had a 1 mile race. And well, everyone's results would be different, right? Because what my feet are different than yours. And actually runners do this all the time. So we have distance runners and we have speed or sprint runners. So the kinds of shoes I wear to race a mile are actually different than the shoes that I wear to run my marathon. I wear different shoes because different shoes have different purposes. So after I did this experiment, I realized that a specific brand of shoe was better for me to run a mile versus the pair of shoes that I used when I ran my marathon. They're different. That's why, and athletes do this stuff all the time. They figure out what works best for them so that they can perform at their best level. So now I have my variables. My next step is to insert or plug or substitute those variables into our format. So I'm going to insert variables into our format. Mateo, what words go in our boxes? Far behind, my love. Gotta get caught up. What words go in my boxes, Braylon? What words go in the boxes and stay there forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever?
How does an effect?
How does an effect? So I'm gonna lock them up because they broke the rules. Throw away the key. How does an effect? Yep. And remember, my IV goes in the top one and my DV goes in the bottom one. So what would the testable question for this experiment be, Zuri? What would my testable question be after I insert my variables into our format? So remember, my IV goes first. So think about this. My IV goes in the first blank. My DV goes in the second blank.
Oh, the brand of shoe and the speed to run 1 mile.
Perfect. So it would be, how does the brand of shoe affect the speed to run a mile? Does everybody see how I took a question that wasn't in our format, identified our variables, and then rewrote it to be in our format so it was easy to identify what was being tested and what's being changed? When everybody's ready, I want thumbs up so I can just see that we can move on. Trying to figure out who left us. I think it was Alejandro, right?
I'm right here.
All right, hon, I'm just looking, babe, because somebody left. Sandrick, you're still there, right? No,
I think it was Isaiah.
okay, I think so too. It takes me a second. All right. Thank you, baby. Thumbs up when we're ready. Thumbs up when we're ready. All right, so what if I started with the question, how do shoes affect running? Is that specific enough? No, why is it not specific enough? How is it not specific enough? It starts with the word how. Sion? I'm not describing what I need to test, right? Let's think about it like this. If I said how do my shoes affect my running? I could be talking about the brand of shoe. I could be talking about the shape of the shoe, the weight of the shoe, right? I could talk about the size of the shoe. Do you see all the different things I could change? And when I say about my running, what are we talking about? Are we talking about how far I run? How fast I run? How slow I run, right? There's so many different things. There's so many different variables that if I asked a scientist to do that same experiment, do you think they would think about it the same way I did? No, they can't repeat it. They can't repeat the experiment when it's broad or non-specific. So go ahead and flip it to the last page. The last page, this is it for all the monies. So we kind of answered this. Do all questions in science start with a testable question?
No. Yes.
Maybe, right? We want them to. We're hopeful. But we don't always get them in the format that we need. Not always. Sometimes we start with non-specific questions. For those of you in class, I'm coming around to check to make sure you have everything at the end, because I've seen some of you who have not been focused. Those of you at home, you are sending this to me at the end. So that way everybody can get credit. I can make sure everybody has what they need to be prepared for next week. Because on Wednesday, we're actually going to practice this. So we say not always. Sometimes we start with non-specific questions. And the question that we're going to use as our guide is, how do plants grow?
Yes.
All right, I'm not going any faster than that. I'll let you catch up. How do plants grow? All right, thumbs up when we're ready. I saw. All right, I'm getting ready to go to the next spot. Now, if I say, how do plants grow? What do you think about, Valerie? What do you think about when we talk about plants growing? What do you think about? If I was going to ask you to design an experiment to tell me how plants grow, what would you do? What would you change? The amount of water. Okay, what would you measure? What about the plant growth? What specifically about it? The height. Okay. Did anybody think of something else? Did anybody think they changed something else? Hannah? The amount of sunlight. How would you measure your plant growth? The height. What else? Did anybody think about they would measure it differently? Mateo?
Wait, not the measurement, but something else.
Okay, go ahead. If it had fertilizer or not. Is there anybody at home that would do something differently? Maybe measure something differently or change something different? The type of plant, Alexis? How much fruit was on it? Perfect. Type of soil, Lucas? The direction it grows, so or if it's like wilted or not, right? So do you see how everybody took that really broad question and might have interpreted it differently? That's why it's really important that we're specific as scientists. Because if I do this experiment and I'm like, Hannah, I need you to do this experiment again just to verify my results and make sure they're accurate. If I didn't tell you exactly what to measure, you might have changed the amount of sunlight, but I meant change the amount of water. Do you see what I'm saying? So we have to make sure we're all on the same page and we're specific. So the way we're going to take a non-specific question like this and turn it into a specific question is with 3 steps. 3 steps. Our first step is to think about factors that affect plant growth. About factors or things, right? Let's say things. Things that affect plant growth. This would be my independent variable. This is what I would change. This is what I would change. So I see some people at home are, I guess, playing with some stuff. So let's say, Dylan, what would you change? What were some that you would change about a plant before we measured it? What would be your independent variable if we were to design this experiment?
Your independent variable would be.
What would you change if we were going to see how plants grow?
I would change the amount of sunlight, the amount of water.
Okay, so just give me those 2. So we could change the amount of sunlight. Can we change both of those at the same time, Dylan?
Yes.
We can in an experiment? We can change more than one thing?
No.
No, we can only change one thing at a time. Otherwise, we lose track. We have to be specific, so we can only change one thing at a time. It's like if you had 1 puppy, it's easy to keep track of that 1 puppy. But if you had 6 puppies, it's hard to keep track of all of them, right? Trust me, it is. I've got 2, and it's hard. It's hard. So you've got to make sure we only change one thing at a time so we can really pay close attention, right, Sion? Valerie, what would you change? Anything else?
I would change where it's located at.
So where it's located in the room, perfect. If it's like in the closet, if it's in a room with a window. Bobby, what would you change?
I would change maybe the amount of soil it has.
The amount of soil? What about you, Sandrick?
Amount of fertilizer.
Oh, I like that. So the amount of soil, the amount of fertilizer.
I was about to say that because
You
no
were?
one else. Yeah, I was just about to say that. But
Well, I'm coming to you next for the next part. So, all right, so we're just going to keep those 5. All right. But do you see how we could change a bunch of different things? Why we have to be specific about what we're changing? Because if I did the experiment, I might change where it's located, but Lucas might change the amount of soil. Those are 2 totally different experiments. I'll let y'all get caught up. Thumbs up when we're ready. Thumbs up when we're ready. Mateo. It's all right, baby. I'm here to help. Go ahead and grab it. Awesome. My second step is to think about how plant growth can be measured. When I go to the doctor and they're checking my growth, they don't check it in just one way. They're not like, I'm going to take your weight, just your weight, and that's how I can see if you've grown. They measure it in a couple different ways. This would be my DV because I'm measuring, right? So Alejandro, how would you measure your plant growth? How would I measure it?
Maybe like what like you put inside of the plant, like, and maybe you put like, I don't know, like medicine or something.
Okay, so that's what I changed though. I put fertilizer in it, right? Maybe I put fertilizer. But how would I measure if it was growing or not? Think about how we measure things.
With like a ruler or something. Like every day you check up, yeah, and then just like measure it with the things that you like have.
Okay, so I might measure with a ruler. I might measure its height. What else could I measure about the plant to make sure it's growing, Josh? The weight?
For weight, is it fine if we just say scale or like something like that, or do we have to put weight?
I would put weight because scales can be interpreted like in a couple of different ways. So I could say the scale of the flowers or the size, right? So scales can be interpreted a couple different ways. But there are definitely other. Go ahead, Alejandro.
Size.
Size of what?
Like of how wide or like wide. Well, no, that's pretty much the same thing as fat. Never mind.
But let's think about it like this. I could think about it in size, but maybe I could think about it in size of the flowers, right? If I have a sunflower and I've got a small flower that's not bloomed yet, but I have another plant that's a big flower and it has bloomed, doesn't that indicate that one has grown more than the other? Yeah. What else? Here's an example. I am growing jasmine in my backyard, okay? Or in my back patio. And last week, it's growing taller, but it had no flower buds on it. It was just growing. But this morning, I woke up and I saw that there were 3 white flowers on there. How was I indicating that it grew? What did I notice about it that showed that it was growing, Hannah? The amount of flowers, right? Does everybody understand how we might be able to measure plant growth in a couple different ways? All right, so we're gonna stop at that one. And then this is the part, this is like your exit ticket. So when everybody's done, I want your thumbs up and I need you to listen very clearly. Because this is your ticket out. Like, no, not, boy, we got way too much to learn. We just started. All right, so our third step, I want you to do it on the side right here, if you ran out of room. Our third step is to choose one variable, choose one of each variable, and insert it into our formula, or insert it into our format, just like we did on the last page. Choose only one of each. So it should look like this. I always start with my how does, right? What other word goes in a box? Effect. I know, you were just about to say it, and then I know you were like, I'm calling out, so I'm gonna stop saying it, but I finished it for you. So I know my IV goes in the first blank, my DV goes in the second blank. I can only choose one of each. I want you guys all to choose one of each. So one from step 1, one from step 2, and make your own testable question. Make up your own question. Pick one from step 1 and put it into your independent variable blank. Pick one from step 2 and put it into your dependent variable, and we're all gonna have our own questions. You see what I'm saying here? All right, My friends at home, I want you to type yours in the box. Type yours in the chat. So I want you to pick one independent variable, one dependent variable to form what your testable question would be. You guys are doing the same. And everybody in the whole class is sharing. No, not like your name is Sharon, you're sharing. So I'll give you guys 2 minutes. 2 minutes to formulate your question and type it in the chat. I'm going to come help you. All right. So I'm going to pick one thing from this. So one of these. So pick one. Out of just from step one. Only one of the independent variables. Okay. I want you to put it in there. And then pick one of the bottom ones. Okay. And put it in there. Yep. Braylon, nice job. We're going to share them when everyone's done, okay? You got about 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Does anybody in class need some guidance? Okay. All right, very good. So, one of these. Okay. I want you to put it in this blank. And then pick one of these. Perfect. And that goes in this blank. And you just come up with a testable question. Does anybody else need some guidance?
Ma'am, I just put it to you in the chat.
So this part goes here. Give me 1 second, Alejandro. That one stays. But this part, where you say, okay, so this. So you say the plant growth. Remember, we brainstormed what that growth meant, right? So pick one of these to put at the bottom to be specific about how we're measuring. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So pick one of those. Which one is? Okay. So then that one goes in this one. All right. I've got one from. So let's have Dylan, we're going to work on ours a little bit, but Braylon, can you unmute and share yours so everybody in class can hear?
I said, how does water affect the growth of a plant?
Good. How does water, and we would want to be specific, right? We could say the type of water or the temperature of the water or the amount of water affect, and then again, we want to be specific about how we're measuring the growth of the plant. So what if we said, how does the temperature of water affect, and let's say, pick one dependent variable, Braylon, one of these 4 things that we said we would measure.
Amount of flowers.
The amount of flowers. Perfect. So do you see how I picked one thing we could change? I'll add temperature up here. And then one thing we could change and one thing we could measure. And we were specific so that if you wanted me to repeat this experiment, I absolutely could because I knew exactly what to change and what to measure. Alejandro, share yours.
Mine was, how does the amount of water affect the height of the plant?
Perfect. Very specific. We're changing the amount of water and measuring the height of the plant. Bryson, share yours.
How does the amount of sunlight affect the amount of plants?
So how does the amount of sunlight affect the amount of flowers? Valerie, remember, we're always starting with how does. So let's rephrase it. Let's try again. Can you share yours with us? And then the class is going to share.
I said, how does the amount of sunlight have on the effect of the height of the plant?
Good. How does the amount of sunlight affect the height of the plant? Zuri, share yours.
How does the location of the flower affect the size of the flowers?
Perfect. How's the location, right? If it's in a dark room or a light room, affect the size? And then my class, Josh, you want to share? Okay. What about, okay, go ahead, Lucas.
How does the amount of sunlight affect the way it grows?
Let's be specific about the way it grows. So, perfect. How does the amount of sunlight affect the height? Sandrick, share yours.
How does the amount of sunlight affect the plant's height?
How does the
And
amount of
growth?
sunlight affect the plant's height? And then I see Bobby. Bobby, you said, how does the amount of fertilizer affect the height? Is that what you said? Okay. How does the amount of fertilizer affect the height? Go ahead, Rebecca, share yours.
How does the amount of water affect the height?
How does the amount of water affect the height of the plant? Go ahead, Lindsay. Is that what you had? What about you, Sion? Did you have a different one? So one thing I do want to point out, and I want everybody's ojos. Thank you. Try that again. Ojos. Thank you. Don't you realize that we all started with the same question, how do plants grow? Yet we came up with, almost all of us came up with different questions. So we could start with a non-specific question, but all design a different experiment. So before we leave, I want somebody, actually really quick, talk to somebody next to you. Tell me why it's important for us to be specific when we're developing a testable question. Talk to somebody. Why is, and you guys can do it in the chat. I'm opening it up to everybody. At least I think I am. Oh, all right. I want you guys all to brainstorm. You can now chat with each other. Why is it important to be to be specific? Why is it important to be specific? Talk to each other in the chat. You got 1 minute. I want you to talk to Valerie. Why is it important? I don't see any chats. Very good. Good. Perfect. Very good. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, what did you guys say? Raise your hands. What did you guys say, Mateo?
I said, because if you're not specific, then no one will know how you did the experiment.
So no one would know how you did the experiment? I heard people say, so we don't mix up the wrong thing. Someone said, because how are you going to know what caused it? So people could understand your question. This was one of the ones I really liked. It said, because if you're not specific, you get someone to do an entirely different experiment. Did anybody else say anything different? Or thumbs up if you got the same thing? All that together. So as scientists, we have to be as specific as possible to make sure our experiments are able to be repeatable. You guys did an amazing job today. Truly super proud. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. And you guys are actually dismissed a little bit early today. So have a great 3-day weekend. Make sure to upload your work into Schoology. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.